Hey everyone, welcome to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast with your hosts, Russell Martin and Brent Aiken. We are glad you're joining us today, and we hope you find this conversation helpful, insightful, and encouraging as you lead your students in ministry. We want to remind you about our social media. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Talk Student Men, and you can also find us on our website, studentministryconversations.org. Now today we are going to hear a conversation Russell had with Jungrock Oh. Rocco is a former student of Russell's youth ministry, and he comes back to give a unique perspective from the side of the student on what worked and prepared him or didn't prepare him for life in college and keeping his faith. Now, Russell, this is your conversation. This is your student. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Yes. Well, one of the hardest things in youth ministry is how you measure success. I mean, you can base it on attendance or some other metric that you measure for your group. But how do you know that your students' faith sticks with them after high school and beyond? So I thought I would ask. I talked with Rocco. He was one of my students in my ministry. And I asked him this question. And in this conversation, Rocco shares about his faith development from being a child through joining youth to college, and then now how he tries to utilize the lessons and the values he learned as he now leads others in ministry at his church today. So it was a great conversation and from a different perspective, and so I hope you enjoy listening to it.
Man, that sounds great. Without further ado, here's Russell's conversation with Rocco.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast. I am one of your hosts, Russell Martin, and I'm excited to bring you this conversation. I have with us, I'm just going to call him Rocco because that's what I always called him. And I've known Rocco for many years, but he is now gone through youth ministry, gone through college, graduated, and is working in a church. And so today we're going to talk about kind of retaining that faith through high school into college and beyond, but not from the perspective of a youth director talking about it. We've done that before, but we're going to get Rocco's perspective from him growing up in a youth group and then going off to a big college and then retaining his faith. And so we're going to talk about what are some of the things that helped him to retain that faith. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the struggles and some of the joys? So Rocco, before I ask you any more questions, why don't you just tell us about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, guys. I am Rocco. That's my nickname, but that's just what I go with everybody, and I love it. I am a 23-year-old College Station resident who just recently graduated from Texas A&M University. I say recently. It's been a year and 4 months now. It feels so recent, but it's been almost over a year. I am a full-time employee here at Brazos Fellowship in College Station, and I am a broadcast video coordinator. That's just a fancy way of saying go make a live stream happen on Sunday mornings.
So that's where you are now. But you, like I said, I've known you from, I guess you were a sophomore or maybe even less than that, ninth grade or something like that.
Even before that. Seventh grade.
Seventh grade. Okay. Mm-hmm. You graduated recently. That was not recently. Whenever I first met you.
Not.
So tell us a bit about your faith growing up. Your story. You have not always been here in the United States. You moved from Korea. So tell us a bit about your faith. Tell us a little bit about your faith with your family and kind of your just growing up, your early years, kind of getting to that junior high stage.
Right. So I grew up in church all my life. I am from a family where both of my mom's side and my dad's side were also all devoted Christians. My dad has 4 siblings. All 4 of them are pastors. My dad's the only one that's not a pastor in his family. My grandpa is a pastor. So I just grew up just in the church, in the faith, and in just this community of Christians. I was born in South Korea, and I just grew up going to church every Wednesday night, every Sunday night. My parents would go to like a prayer service every morning at 4:30 in the morning. Would never miss a service. And that's just the environment that I grew up in, and that's just the role model and the example that my parents set for me growing up. And when I moved to the States in 2007, when I was 9 years old, I didn't really know how to speak English. That was my first priority. It was to try to get involved and make friends, learn how to speak the language, learn how to, learn the culture in Texarkana, Texas, of all places. But I met some friends through baseball, through basketball, and through soccer and football, whatever that I kind of put myself into, and I just tackled. And some friends went to youth groups on Wednesday nights. That's when I first got plugged into an American church, an English-speaking church, because I just always followed my parents to go to a Korean church, a small little community of 10 to 15 people every Sunday morning. So I started attending Williams Memorial Youth Group, and just following some of my friends. Will was a big part in bringing me to church, to youth group, and ever since then, I just got really plugged in. I was sold. I was really bought in. I rarely missed a Wednesday service. I was always there, even outside of Wednesday. Will and I would go up there in the summer and just kind of annoy people, hang out around the church, and just do whatever we could do, play basketball. Whatever came up, we were there. And I just kept getting plugged in. And I loved it. I love the community. I love the friends that I got to make at the church, in the youth group. I loved being able to serve, being able to go to mission trips every summer, being able to serve on the worship team leading small groups, and just being a big part of the youth group, and just putting a lot of my time and my effort into just serving at the youth group.
I think you hit on two of the main points. One of the interviews we had earlier was with one of the co-authors of the Sticky Faith book, and talks about I don't have them in front of me, but there's several key factors that help students to retain their faith. One of the scary stats is that out of all of your active youth, and like you were active, you were always there. Out of your active youth, a good percentage of those will leave the church when they graduate. And so the goal is how do you help students to make that bridge? And I think there's two things that you already talked about. One was family. And y'all had a robust family faith experience that was always kind of there with you. Mm-hmm. And the other was getting involved and having responsibility and doing things, so leading small groups and stuff like that. But you mentioned that you went from the Korean church to an American English-speaking church, and a different experience. What were some of the things that surprised you, even with that, or that you were either disappointed by, or overwhelmed by, or encouraged by?
Yeah, so the Korean church that I went to here, and not even talking about the Korean church back home, but the Korean church that I attended here in the States was very traditional, just your traditional, go to service, stand up and sing, sit down, listen to the message, and leave and go home. Granted, for our church, because our community was so small and so tight knit, after the church, we would have lunch together. Everyone would just bring food, like potluck style, and we would go over to like the other side of the church, and we would have lunch together. I thought that was tremendous. That's not something that a lot of churches can do because of the size of the churches, because you can't sit down hundreds of people down every Sunday, expect people to bring food, and then just eat lunch together. But because we were so small and so tight knit, that's something that we were allowed to do. We were given a chance to do, and I really enjoyed that. In comparison to the American church, I think when I joined the youth group, because I never really attended American Sunday morning services, because I also played keys for the Korean church on Sunday mornings. In comparison to the youth group, I never really felt just the freedom to just be myself and just engage with other people, just kind of hang out and just have fun while also talking about Jesus. I always thought of church as this formal event that happens every Sunday morning. Just very holy, which, I mean, obviously it is very holy, but just this very just formal, not really fun and entertaining experience. But as I joined the youth group, as my friends started going there, as I started becoming friends with a lot of the people that were already in the youth group, people like Sophie and Anna, and all those people that were already in the youth group, I really found myself feeling at home because they welcomed me in so quickly, and I just felt like it just fit my personality really well, because I am also a person that's very open, very transparent, and very just people loving person myself. So I think that was the biggest thing that I enjoyed joining a youth group and experiencing an American, I guess, community when I first joined, was that I could really be myself. I didn't have to be this formal, wear a button up, sit down, with your hands on your lap and just listen kind of kid.
Yeah. And you talked about we've mentioned before you getting involved. And for those listening, if Rocco throws out names or I throw out names, again, like Colleen, Rocco was in my youth group. So when he's talking about Williams, I was the youth director there. So we don't expect you to know who we're talking about, but we'll try to make sure and keep the references to inside references, which are not a good thing to have in your church or anything. Is you want to make sure your language is open and everybody knows what's going on. So, so you talked about going from being in Korean church and you started getting involved. Was there anything that you saw that you were like, hey, this about the American church, about that kind of was either disappointing or let down or anything that was disillusioned or anything about that?
Not early at all. I was honestly just so fascinated, and it was I don't want to say an upgrade, because I love the Korean church and I really enjoyed being there and I love the community that I was a part of, but I didn't have anyone my age in that community. Everybody was my parents' age. They were all grown ups. They were all super old. And I just didn't really have many friends at church that I could connect to, that I could talk about Jesus with, that I could just kind of do life together with, if that makes sense. And I think that's something that I really found through Williams, just with friends that I've made, with having you there, just kind of mentoring us all the way through from 7th grade all the way up. And even now, it's been Lord knows how long, and I'm still, in good contact with you. So I'm trying to think of something to kind of help you out here.
Yeah, if you don't have it, that's fine.
I just I've had such a good experience, just all the way through from middle school through high school, even now. I've had such a good experience, and it's been a very, very integral part of my growth in my faith, and my growth in maturity, my growth in just building relationships, and just having people skills. It's just been a very, very, very big part of who I am now. So I'm just super thankful.
No, you're good. And just so I told him, I told Rocco, I said, don't be shy. If you can criticize, you can bring out things we could have done differently, because that's kind of what I'm wanting to do with this, is that there are things I know that all youth directors do. You don't often get the chance to talk to students 3, 4, 5 years out of your youth group. But when you talk to some of the leaders, we talked to people like Mark Ostreicher and Brock Morgan, and Walt Mueller and some of those. And one of the things that they say is you really don't know the impact you have. You don't see your success until you see your students 5 years down the road. Are they still connected? Because they graduate, they go off, and they're kind of into a new ministry or whatever like that. And so that's why I'm trying to just pinpoint a few of the things that can help youth leaders now. If you are listening to this, here's some of the things that worked from somebody who it worked for. So as you think back, what are some of the main things, not just that I did as far as a youth director, but what were some of the main things that you experienced or you did as a youth in youth ministry that you think helped to prepare you well for going into college and then going beyond to staying connected now, being involved in a church?
Right. I think the best thing that I did in middle school and high school was saying yes. Not making an excuse of being too busy, not making an excuse of having different things and prioritizing different things, but just saying yes to the opportunities that I've been given at youth and at church. In high school, even in middle school, I started playing piano in the Korean church as well, but also with our youth group, and sometimes on Sunday mornings. That has helped me now volunteer in college all the way through from freshman year to senior year at the church that I'm at now. And I think that's one of the bigger reasons to why I'm still here full time, because I served and volunteered on the band all the way through, and just like getting to know the people that are at the church and showing people I get a little bit of my heart towards worship and towards serving at the church and volunteering at the church. Along with that, and adding to that, I think the thing that I really learned the most is importance of missions, importance of going out and serving, importance of branching out and not just being sheltered in our own little town, but doing Summit, doing UM going to different trips, to build wheelchair ramps, to, tear down sheetrock or replacing sheetrock, or building a whole deck, building stairs, all the different things that we've done over the years, going to Livingston, to Belleville, wherever it is around South Texas, East Louisiana, or West Louisiana. I think that has really helped me open my eyes to the life of, or just the idea of missions, the idea of going out and helping people, the idea of just finding joy in the opportunity of that and the ability of that, and the fact that I get to do that, and I get to go serve, and I get to go help people out that may not be able to do that, help themselves out in that area. That's one of my favorite memories of high school, looking back, just being able to go to those kind of mission trips. That has helped me prioritize missions in the future. And, my sophomore year of college, I went to Egypt to go work at a camp on a mission trip, to go help out, run the camp, but also build things for them, around the area. And I just learned a lot branching out and going on mission trips and stuff like that. The third thing and the last thing is leading a small group, leading a team. That's something that I valued a lot, that I honestly knew was very valuable for me in high school, being able to lead a team, be able to lead a group of sixth graders or seventh graders or eighth graders, wherever in the season that I was in, being able to mentor them, being able to have a good relationship with them, and have them not necessarily look up to me, but have me as in their corner. If they have any questions, because I've already been there and done what they're going through, someone that they can kind of look to, and for me to support them from the back or even from the front on just kind of getting through that stage of life on to college, and so on and so on. So just through the experience I've had at Williams Youth, it is an understatement to say that I've definitely used so much of that skill set moving forward, even in college and even now, as I'm in charge of leading a group of volunteers to run a Sunday broadcast, or a group of volunteers to form a band on Sunday night for college services and stuff like that. So it's just been a good experience.
And that's, again, you hit on three things. We talked about family previously, but as far as being in the church, and I just want to highlight to make sure people catch these. One was the opportunity to be involved as a student in adult church. Sam Halverson talked about this several podcasts ago, because he has a book called One Body, and it's integrating youth into the life of the church. That yes, you can have your own youth group and your own children's ministry, and there's definitely times for that, but also it is one body of the church. Don't just, we didn't just wait and say, hey, when you're 18, you can lead something. Right. It's you have that ability, which I thought goes through too when you're with the Korean church. Like, you were playing piano, y'all all got together and ate afterwards. And I don't want to overlook the power of a meal. I know that was one of the huge integral parts we had as far as in our youth ministry. And it wasn't just so everybody could get fed. It was because you sat down around the table and pulled 5 tables together and 35 chairs around there and sat and ate and talked and such. So the power of the meal, but opportunities to be involved with a student in adult church, using your gifts in all areas and all ranges, the importance of missions, and several different Army Summit, those camps, and we'll put links to some of those if you are, especially in the Methodist Church, and you want to find more about Army is definitely nationwide. So wherever you're listening, and it's not just Methodist, you can get involved in that. and then leading that small group and having those students look up to you, and continuing to pour into it. I mean that involved preparation, that involved organization, that involved talking with parents. And we're in a minute we're going to get to kind of one of the places you wanted to focus, which was transitioning from high school to college. And so we're talking about some of these things that helped you to get to that point. But what are there things that you felt maybe just weren't, I'm not saying bad, they're not negative, but just weren't as effective, or anything that you looked at that you were like, hey, that Russell, you thought you were helping me a whole lot, and that didn't help, or just that maybe didn't work as far as within the youth group, something that you could advise another youth leader to say, hey, this may not be doing as much as you think it is?
Something that I wish we could have been better at.
That's a good way to go.
While I was in youth, I wish we prioritized worship a little bit more, and the quality of worship a little bit more. Now, back then, you had so much on your plate and so many areas that you needed to cover on your own. And even with some of the people there they're helping, the parents, there to help with food. People like Colleen, or some people like, I know I shouldn't keep popping out names, but people like Sadie, people they were there all the time to help out, who were tremendous help and who were tremendous, just like setting things up and making sure everything was in place, ready to go. I wish we would have prioritized it a little bit more, and I wish I would have asked you to delegate me to like take care of that and to kind of build that area myself. Now, obviously, I was 15, 16 years old, and I probably didn't have the ambition that I do have now to like kind of reach out to you to see if I can like lead a team of guys and like take that responsibility for myself and try to build that. Now I have that ambition, and now I'm so driven by that to like build a team of volunteers to like excel in what I'm doing and like improving quality and take care of my volunteers and stuff like that. But like looking back, I wish I had that ambition. I had that motivation to like even go to you and be like, hey, Russell, I'm really passionate in worship. I really enjoy what I'm doing. Let me grab these guys that are also passionate, also wants to get involved, and let me see what I can do with this team. Let me see how I can grow this team and kind of help them help me and just improve the quality of worship and just take it really seriously going forward. Because I think worship is very impactful. Personally, I'm just very passionate in worship because I've been around it for so long. I'm in and out, of the team or just, worshiping outside. So I wish we would have done that. I wish I would have done that personally, just to be able to reach out and be like, hey, let me take this under my wing. Let me take this responsibility. And I want to challenge. Yeah, of course.
I was going to ask you, is that something you're realizing now that you've been doing worship, or you were thinking back, hey, I wish we would emphasize? Is it something you realized because you now are involved so heavily in worship, or is it something that you would have realized no matter what, even if you weren't involved?
This is something I'm realizing because I'm learning the importance of giving somebody a role in a team. I'm realizing how beneficial that is, how impactful that is, to give someone a sense of responsibility that they can hold on to and give them a sense of purpose to kind of work towards, instead of just being another guy on a team, but giving him a title, giving him a specific role, giving him a dream, and something that they can kind of work towards and just see where they can go with it. I didn't know that in high school. And this is something I know now because I think I'm working at a church in a team of volunteers where I want to get more out of them. I want to just dig out their potential. I want to see what they got, and I just want to get them bought in, right? So that's why I'm looking to have an intern. That's why I'm giving people roles. Like, when I have a list of tasks, I want to like assign that to somebody on a weekly basis so that they have a purpose of being here. It's not just showing up on a Sunday morning to run a camera or mix sound, but it's like, hey, can you help me come in on a Monday morning, sit down, let's have a meeting? Can you help me schedule volunteers? Can you help me kind of get to know the volunteers better, to connect them better? Can you just play that role with me? And I've seen the benefits of that, and I've seen how that kind of changes people's mindset and how that motivates people. So I wish I knew that back then, and I wish I would have challenged myself to kind of have more of that role.
What was the you talk about how worship being important, like, and one of the things you said, we wish we could have prioritized worship more. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So in what I remember from Wednesday night youth, we prioritize making a team. We prioritize having the people there to play the instruments, prioritize having the people there to sing. But I don't think we prioritized on the quality of music, and I don't think we prioritized on being purposeful with what we were singing, what we were playing with our set list. I think more times than not, we were just so caught up. I say we, as in just everybody, band, you, everybody. We were so caught up in just everything else that was going on a Wednesday night that we had to take care of, making sure that food's there, making sure that kids are not breaking their legs playing gaga ball, or not breaking the basket or whatever, or running out in the parking lot. Just so many different, I guess, things to worry about on a Wednesday night that by the time all the kids get there, foods are ready, then it was like, oh gosh, let's get the band ready. We're going to sing How He Loves, or we're going to sing whatever. And then I think we did not quite prepare ourselves to success on a Wednesday night. I think I definitely had enough time on a Monday or Tuesday or any other day to sit down and say, okay, what can we sing on a Wednesday night? How can I prepare everyone else, our guitar player, our vocalist, our drummer, whoever we had that Wednesday? How can I prepare them? Can I give them sheet music? Can I give them any notes of like specific details to that song that they need to go practice? And how early can I give them a set list? That's something that I am learning now is very beneficial, even though I don't lead worship here and I don't really help with worship here. And I'll probably actually help make set lists, make Ableton sessions and all that for our college services starting August. But because that's just something that I'm really passionate about and I want to learn more and gain that experience. But I wish I did that in high school. I wish I did that back then too.
You were going to say something before I interrupted you. Do you happen to remember what it was? You wanted to tell us? Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're listening and if you're like in a position where I was, or if you're in a position where you are, or you were as a youth director, I want to challenge you guys to step up. If you're in Russell's chair, I want to challenge you to delegate your kids who are bought in, and get kids to bought in, get adults to be bought in, and give them a role and challenge them to like a specific thing that they can really be responsible for, and for them to find purpose for. And if you're in my shoes, where you're in high school or college or any other situation where you're a part of a team, step out, ask if you can take on a role, ask what you can do, find something you're passionate for, and see if you can take that responsibility. More times than not, they're not going to turn you down unless,
and that's what I was going to, that's the other thing I was going to ask was, as a youth leader, because most people listening are youth leaders, we may have a random high school student who logs on here, but
right.
What are some of the ways that youth leaders can maybe recognize even the desire that you had to do that, even though you're not saying it? What are some of the things that would have helped you to have taken that step more, or something that they could say or look for, or anything like that? Anything you can think of?
For me, you just have to invest in them. Put in time and effort, take them out to lunch, sit them down one-on-one, and just cast your vision, cast your dream that you have for them. And for me, the thing that I really like to do with my volunteers is just tell them how much I appreciate them, number one, of their time, what they do, how much value that they bring to the team, how much value their skill set, their effort, and their time bring to what we accomplish here. And how we really cannot do it without people like them. And just keep casting the vision of, I think you have so much potential. I think you have so much to bring to the team. I think you have a very, very, very clear purpose that you can serve here. And for me, that's just how you get people bought in. You just have to invest.
And 13-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 18-year-olds would love that conversation.
Absolutely.
I think
just words of affirmation.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we're like, well, they can't do that. It's like, I mean, I was amazed at what, and I'm not going to list names, but you can think of several students who were 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, who were doing things and running the youth program. I mean, that was the goal, was to have a youth-led youth program. Right. And it was a joy for me anytime that I didn't even get on stage on a night. And I stayed in the back. I may have run sound every once in a while or something like that, but the worship, the announcements, the message, and then sent to small groups, and small groups happen. And I just get to sit there and quote unquote do nothing, which you're not quote unquote doing nothing.
Right.
And we have a couple of other podcasts that talk about student leadership. But what I think is important is seeing this from the student's side of that. Well, I don't want to get away from us. And this actually fits within our next section, because you went from high school to college. And we've talked about some of the things that help prepare you as far as discipleship and things like that. But what would you want to tell youth leaders? It may have to deal with some of the things that we did with youth ministry, or just in general, about that transition from high school to college.
Right. I personally was very fortunate coming to College Station because I had about 8 to 10 friends that I was very close with in high school come to Aggie Lane with me. I didn't have a vehicle coming to college. I lived in a dorm, which is not the most common thing in College Station. I know dorm life is a lot more prominent. It is prominent, but a lot of freshmen live off campus at A&M. And I know that's not really the case in a lot of other universities, but that's kind of the case here. But I chose to live in a dorm mainly because I didn't have a vehicle starting out in college. So what I would do is I would bus over to my friend's apartment off campus on Saturday night. I would hang out with them, spend the night. I would take a change of clothes, and I would go to church with them Sunday morning. Now, I didn't have a say on what church we went to. Didn't really care what church we went to, but I knew that I really wanted to go to a church on Sunday morning. So I did. Looking back, it's kind of crazy I did that, and it's wild that I had the motivation to do that. And
I was going to ask that. Like, any reasons why you think, from your perspective, that you had that motivation?
I don't know. I think about that a lot, and that thought comes to me a lot sometimes. Just occasionally, I think about that. I'm like, where did that drive come from? Where I would legit just go walk over to the other side of campus to where the bus was, take the bus on a Saturday night to go over to my friend's house, just so I can go to church on Sunday morning. And just it sounds like so much time wasted just being on the bus. It sounds like such a hassle. But I did it every single Saturday, unless I had work, which I also worked. So that was a thing. But even then I would Uber to church on Sunday morning, and I rarely missed. And it's really hard to comprehend what my thought process was my freshman year, or my first semester of freshman year, when I first started going to Brazos Fellowship, which is here. And I really have my friends to thank, because they're the ones that found this church. And they're the ones that kind of brought me here on Sunday mornings. And I just kind of stuck around, because we also had a college service on Thursdays. So because I really enjoyed it, I would bus over on a Thursday afternoon, come here, and then I would get one of them to take me back to the dorm, or I'll bus back home, depending on what time it was. I say that because I think the biggest catalyst to me finding a church and settling down and still keeping my faith is having a community. Now, like I said at the very beginning, I was very fortunate to have friends that prioritize going to church on Sundays, and even college services on Thursday nights, that I can kind of depend on going with me and keeping me accountable, to even call me or text me if I don't show up on a Saturday night to go to church. Community is everything, in my opinion, when you are to keep your faith. even if you're a high school kid or a college kid or even adult, I think if you don't have community to keep you accountable, to have you keep going back to church, it's very difficult for you to keep your faith and for you to stay disciplined. Now, all those friends that I had from high school have all moved away. I am the only one left in College Station. Some of them are back in Texarkana. Some of them are up in Arkansas at law school. One of the guys actually are coming back from medical school here in College Station in a couple months, which I'm super excited about. But I took that community that I had from Texarkana, went to church, and then found a new community in church that I sought after, that I really pursued, and who I'm still really, really, really good friends with. The first thing I did was reach out to the worship director, and I don't know where this confidence came from. Looking back, I there's no shot I can ask that kind of question, but I just stepped up and said, "Hey, I play keys back home. Do y'all need a keys guy? Can I audition? Whatever. I really like to play. You'll have space." And her name was Kayla, and she was like, "Absolutely. Let's get you audition. Let's get you on the team." Never heard me play. She's like, "All right, let's do it." She was super, super sweet. And she was like, "Let's do it." And then so I sent in like a video, and then I joined the team. And that was like the first community I found at the church, the worship team. And then from that, I met my future roommate. And from that, I've met the youth director here. I've met like the adult ministry director here, and just got really plugged in and got to be really good friends with a lot of the people, and just found my community through the church and the people that are in the church. So when you're transitioning from high school to college to like a new environment, or if you're helping somebody transition from high school to a new environment, I would really emphasize finding a community, especially if you're not moving to the new environment with the people that you are around already. I would really, really encourage and emphasize them to go step out and be uncomfortable and go find people, because when you are getting into college, you're not the only person that doesn't have friends. Everybody coming in, every incoming freshman is coming into a new environment. Everybody's trying to make friends. Everybody's trying to find their place in this massive place and this massive new environment. So don't be afraid. Reach out, have courage, be bold, and pursue them, invest in them, take them out to lunch, ask them to go like read a book together. And just pursue them, pursue, and find the community, find your people, and keep each other accountable, and whatever that looks like for you guys. That's the biggest and most important advice that I can give from my experience in the 4 years here at Aggieland is the importance of community, the importance of finding a community and sticking with them and pursuing them, and not just expecting them to pursue you. It has to be a two-way street. And more times than not, you have to instigate that first, because that's what you want and what you need.
I wrote down when you were, those are great thoughts. I wrote down when you were talking, I said, it's not just creating not just a community, but the need and the desire for a community. So one of the things that we did as far as your church at home, your Korean church had that community. When you moved to the youth group and you not only became part of the community, but then were helping to lead in the community and welcoming in younger youth and other people and creating that. So it's almost like you created this appetite for community that when you went to college, you were like, I've got to find this somewhere. And it's not something that's going to happen automatically. So that was just one of my observations. Any thoughts on that? Yeah,
it's a culture, right? It's building a culture as well as a community. I had such a good time back home in a youth group, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Just every Wednesday, every Sunday night, whatever we got to do, and that was just like my favorite thing of the week. And that's something that I really just kind of craved, I guess, even coming to college, just like finding that entertainment and that community that I had. So I guess that's something that you can also kind of challenge yourself, like as a youth director. How do I build that culture where it's where kids are enjoying so much and love being a part of so much that they don't want to get rid of that, even if they're moving away, and like just building that culture, right? The biggest thing for me, not the biggest thing, but the best example that I have is Inside Out and Transit at North Point Ministries, North Point Church in Atlanta, Georgia, does a tremendous job of having that culture. It is a church. It's a humongous church. Number one, it's a partner. They're our partner church, and we kind of model our church after them. But it's pride. They take pride in what they get to do in Transit and Inside Out, and the kiddos, they advertise on social media. They're proud to post about it, and they're proud to advertise about it. They're proud to go there every Wednesday. And it's just, it is a community and a culture that they were able to build where kids just love it and they just keep coming back and they crave that graduating from high school. So what happens is wherever they go for college, they find a partner church locally, and then they go and serve for Transit and Inside Out as a counselor, and they go serve in that church, in that partner church that they find, because it's everywhere. And I've had personally 5 or 6 volunteers who comes from Georgia, comes from a partner church, and they want to serve at Transit. They want to serve at Inside Out, and Transit and Inside Out, it's like the middle school and high school ministry that North Point has. So just having that culture, building that culture, I think is just very, very super important.
And so, I mean, that's a system that they have with North Point.
Right.
But I know in our denomination that I'm serving, Methodist Church, I mean, we have, there is a connection. There's one of the things that we talk about as being connectional system. And so there are any place that your student is going, there's a place you can call ahead and connect, and you can tell, say, hey, here are 5 churches, and here's a word of advice to youth leaders. They don't have to be your same denomination. They don't have to be. I mean, I would much rather a student be involved at a church that is Baptist or Lutheran or Catholic or non-denominational or whatever. I would much rather them be involved there than not be involved at all. Right. It's, I mean, I think we got to let go of some of the, it has to be this, but definitely emphasize some of your churches with your, because there's going to be familiarity. There's going to be, they're going to know, hey, this is how we did baptism and communion, and this is how the church kind of worked. But get in contact find out where all your seniors are going, and contact churches and say, hey, they're coming, and then tell your seniors, hey, you expect a call, because they're, you don't have to go there, but at least check it out and make those. But I think the other thing you talked about was, again, and this is like it's not a new concept for me, but it's making sense, is you're almost getting used to the culture of that fun, worship, connected culture.
Absolutely.
And so if they have that in high school, they're going to look for that in some church, if it's a connected church like you talked about, or if it's a Wesley Foundation or a Baptist student ministry or whatever like that, if they have that in high school, if they have that craving for, I know there's a place where I can go where there's people, where there's adults who care and value me, where I can be involved, where I can lead if I want to, where we worship, where we do missions, all of those things, they're going to look for that, where the students are going to look for that wherever they go off to college. And like I said, not particularly a specific church, but they're looking for that. I know that feeling of a place where I can go twice a week and be with people. And so they're going to find that. And so, but if you send them off of, we don't do anything, we meet on Wednesday nights and do a little bit, but you're not really creating that opportunity, because you serve now because you served when you were in high school.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
You knew what that felt like, you knew what to do, you had a glimpse. So you were looking for an opportunity. Opportunity to serve when you went. So what you model in high school is going to be what they're looking for possibly as they move on and go to college. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just, it's almost what I'm used to, right? And I've enjoyed it so much, and I've kind of systemized myself to want that, to crave that, and to keep serving. And I think that's what that's what kept bringing me back. That's what kept bringing me back to the church. And that's why I think I found my first community in the church here in College Station too. So that's where I'm comfortable in. I think that's what I'm used to doing. So absolutely because I'm used to it.
It creates your priority. Like if you're in high school and you always go hang out with your friends and party or whatever like that, that's what you're used to. And when you go to college, that's what you look for. But if you are used to prioritizing Sunday and Wednesdays and prioritizing, that kind of gets into your cult, that's just what your mind kind of looks for. If we have people who do dance all the time, and when they go off to college, they look for those cultures. So it's not a new concept, like I said, but that's a fascinating thing to think about. What else? Anything else that you want to share? You have, bunch of youth leaders, maybe senior pastors like me. But anything else about how your experience in the church in youth helps you to retain your faith as you move into college and beyond? Because you're beyond now. So
I am beyond now.
I feel good, huh? So anything else you want to share? We're kind of running up on time, so I don't want to keep everybody too long. Yeah,
no, you're good. I just say, for me personally, the biggest thing was just having that culture, having that community. So if you're a youth director, I challenge you to create that culture. I challenge you to build that community. And I know that, Russell, you talked about previously that your goal was to lead a youth-led Wednesday night service, right? Even adding on to that, I would say something that might be beneficial and something that might be effective is to give a student a specific role to play on a Wednesday night. And just giving them that purpose and a specific responsibility, and just cast that vision to them, so that they know exactly what they're doing. That's their role, that's their goal, and they're going to want to excel in that. At least that's what I would want to do. So I would encourage that. I would encourage building a team, but also being very specific and detail oriented in giving them a purpose of what to do, in that team. So,
and if they don't do it, it fails, and you pick it back up and you try again.
Absolutely.
But I think that part of that in that too is, if a student has responsibility and they don't do it. I remember you were probably gone, but we had one series where all youth led did the messages for the series. Because we had met and I was proud of them a couple of weeks before. I said, "Hey, I'm proud of y'all. Y'all did everything on Wednesday night. They all had their roles and they all did their stuff." And one of the students, who was a pastor's child, said, "We didn't do everything." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, you get the message. And I said, "All right, let's go." And so my youth assistant and then several of the students gave the messages. But there's one student who's, I won't name his name, but he's now off in the Army now. He showed up and he was like, "Hey, I didn't do the message." And I said, "Well, you got 15 minutes before the service starts." And I said, do you want me to delay or do you want to take it? And he goes, "I'll do it." And so he went off into a room by himself, came up with some points. It wasn't, you wouldn't put it on a podcast and preach it at North Point or anywhere else, but he got the idea across. He got his point across. He was able to ad lib enough to keep attention and did a good job. But that was a moment where I wasn't going to be like, "Okay, well, I'll do it. I'll rescue." It was giving them that, teaching that responsibility to be able to go forward and do that. So I think that's key too. So
that's awesome.
Well, Rocco, any way that if somebody wants to get a hold of you, where are you on social media? Where are you on email, website? Just how can we connect with you if someone says, "I want to talk to him more"?
Yeah, so I am on probably every social media you can think of. But my main handle is at JRocco77. That's at JROCKO77 on Instagram or Facebook. I'm just Rocco, or really anything. My email is roh@brazosfellowship.com. brazosfellowship.com. That's probably the best way to reach me, other than like Instagram DMs or my phone number. If you want my phone number, you can ask Russell. He can give it to you to text me about any questions or anything. So
yeah. And have you hit the golf course several times since we played?
I hit it twice, and I'm going back Saturday.
That's good. Yeah, I went the other day. I hit 99, which my goal is always to get on 100. Nice. So I was like, all right, I'll take that. Now, can I do it consistently? I don't know, but we'll find out. So, well, Rocco, thank you for joining us. And I will talk to you way more continually throughout the time. Rocco is also a great resource. One is a phenomenal piano player, has far exceeded his teacher on that from what he learned from me. And it's just a great example of, one of those stories where I can look back and go, hey, Rocco got it. Like, and for me to go, hey, we did some good, because now he is leading hundreds or thousands of people, depending on the Sundays and the groups, and making sure worship happens for a major church in a major area. And so my other encouragement is seek out those stories and find those students who encourage you, who you can say, hey, you know what? We had some awful weeks and some things that didn't work well, but because we created a culture, because we were present, because we were there, because we had adults who were there, because, I planned 52 sermons and did crazy games and everything like that, that these students are now continuing their faith and focus on those. Yes, the numbers are abysmal, depending on how you look at it, about the students who walk away from faith. But don't just spend all your time focusing on the students who walked away. Find those who didn't, because they are influencing more and more students of their own, adults of their own, and churches as they go. So thanks again, Rocco. And hopefully we'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope you were encouraged and inspired by this week's episode, and that you found tools that you can use as you pour into the lives of your students.
Yes, if you found this or any of our episodes helpful, would you please just leave a comment or a rating wherever you're listening to this? We would appreciate that so much. And maybe you know someone who would benefit from this conversation. Share it with them. Take a moment and tag us and tag them on social media. Send them an email. However you can, spread the word. Tell others about the Student Ministry Conversations podcast. You can tag us at Talk Student Men on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, be sure, go check out our merchandise and other ways you can support us financially. You can find that on our website. There's some t-shirts. There's some other ways that you can donate to keep this podcast going. So, Brent, I understand that next week we have a very special guest and a great episode. So can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to hear next week?
Yeah, so next week is probably the biggest episode that we have ever had, just for the sake of there's so much stuff going on. First off, Russell, you're my guest. And as we had said a few weeks ago when you interviewed me, we were both going to try and interview each other before season 1 was over. But next week is the last episode of season 1. And so that is an exciting thing. You're going to come on the show and we're going to talk about student worship teams, how to build one, how to be a proper leader for leading one, and all that stuff. And then also we're closing out season 1. And so we'll talk about the end of season 1. And then also we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up in season 2. I am super excited about next week. It's going to be an action-packed week of content, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it next week.
Well, that is awesome and exciting to think that we've been going at this for a year, an episode almost every week, bringing it to you every Thursday here on the Student Ministry Conversations podcast. Hey, just a reminder, go check out the website, studentministryconversations.org. There are show notes from this episode and from other episodes. Just search for whatever you're looking for, the episode number, the title, the guest in your search bar. And we also have other articles and posts as well. And again, thank you for joining us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next time.